There is a big difference, all these years watching football, of an offense that calls plays and an offense that has an identity. The Niners have an identity, offensive coach. The Chiefs have an identity, offensive coach. One of my complaints about the Chargers and the Bills, they have great quarterbacks, but sometimes they're just asking them to put on a cape, be Superman, and win the game. What's their offensive identity? The Bills' offensive identity is Josh Allen's great. He's like 40, 50 yards from being their leading rusher. Green Bay should have an identity, offensive coach Aaron Rodgers, but has lacked it. And now they've found it. 5-0 this year when they run it at least 50% of the time, did yesterday and won. Matt LaFleur came to Green Bay known as a guy that could craft a run game. So why the heck it take so long? Packer fans have been pounding the table for 5 months on this. It took them until late November. But when they run 50% of the time, and when they focus on running, they're almost always good at it. Aaron Jones is fantastic. A.J. Dillon, very capable. O-line, top 6, 7 minimum in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers can manipulate, audible in, audible out, super smart. Do you know Matt LaFleur is 12-0 as the Packers coach? 12-0 when he just runs 50% of the time. 12-0. Why did it take so long? You know what? In the end, he's won a bunch of games, and it looks like I think they'll beat Detroit at Lambeau, and they'll get into the playoffs, which is good for everybody because Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are a big brand and fascinating. This team has always been, from day one this season, too young and too limited on the perimeter to be a shootout team. That's not what they are. Slowly, Christian Watson has developed into a real threat downtown, and that's great. But they're not a great team. They're a team that has to play a certain way to win. It just took them forever to figure out what it was. But who cares? They're going to beat Detroit. They're going to get in. And this is going to be a Packer team like a Dallas team. We tend to think Dallas is great. No, Dallas has to play a certain way. Dallas has to run the football. Dak can be complimentary. Green Bay is very similar. The difference is Aaron, of course, is one of the 10, 12 best quarterbacks that's ever played the game. But what's fascinating is the more they run the ball, how it affects the rest of their team. Their defense isn't on the field. Have you looked at Green Bay's defense during this 4-game winning streak? What do you know? Their time of possession goes up running, second in the league, and their second half points allowed are third best in the NFL. So what were we complaining about all early in the year? What's wrong with their defense? It was on the field too much. Green Bay's running. Defense is rested. Has much more energy in the second half. Plays great. This is a real identity. Early in the year, they were just calling plays. They were trying to figure out the rookie receivers. And some of this is Aaron Rodgers is so great and very smart. Here comes Matt LaFleur. You know, you want to make sure he spends his offseason doing his thing. He comes into camp. The media's banging on Aaron with the rookie receivers. There's a lot to balance here in Green Bay. But watching them the last couple of weeks, it's like, yeah, that's it. That's what fans in Green Bay have been hammering the table. They should look a lot like Wisconsin football. If Wisconsin football had Aaron Rodgers. Wisconsin football, big O-line, run the ball, one or two deep threats, occasionally make a play. But Aaron said after, it's feeling good, like the focus. I think they get in. Again, at home against Detroit. I can't trust Detroit in that spot. I trust Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau a lot more in this spot than I do Detroit. But, you know, Detroit they always play hard. Goff's having a good year. But this is what it is. Calling plays and an identity are two different things. And often in the NFL, defensive coaches, Ron Rivera, I think sometimes, Sean McDermott, they can't figure out in Buffalo the offensive line. It's been like 5 years. Pittsburgh, Tomlin can't figure out the offensive line. Been 4 or 5 years. Finally, you watch Green Bay and you're like, that's exactly what they should be doing since September. Maybe, though, it wasn't possible. All right, so San Francisco didn't play very well and won. And right now in the NFL, the Niners and the Chiefs are the only two teams in this league that can play poorly and win. So the question with Brock Purdy was always, can he play from behind? Can he play well when they really need him to deliver? And yesterday was a great example. The Niners defense, Not very good. Didn't show up. Robbie Gould, good kicker. Missed in regulation. So Brock Purdy was relied on, like Mahomes often is, to clean up the mess. And he's pretty good. Now, you saw some arm limitations. He's not a big kid and a big arm guy, but he plays with some tempo. He's pretty good. He's a 4-year college starter. He's accurate. There's some leadership stuff here. Pretty good. Yesterday was a great example, and this is how football works. Everybody's great with a lead in a run game. Yesterday they fell behind. He had to get in a shootout. He had sometimes good protection, sometimes he didn't. And you saw the things that they're raving about in San Francisco. He's more accurate than Trey Lance. He's more athletic than Jimmy Garoppolo. And they've surrounded him with a ton of good players. And this is, again, you say, well, he's a 7th-round pick. Never forget this. Kurt Warner, all-time great, undrafted. Tony Romo, all-time very good, undrafted. 7th round, 6th round Brady. There's a lot of talent. There's more good quarterbacks than ever before because of the 7-on-7 camp. So generationally, the guys coming into the league now, more starts, more experience, more refined, quarterback coaches in high school. Brock Purdy is good. They needed him yesterday. Now, Mahomes has to bail out the Chiefs all the time. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, we get that. We were kind of sitting around going, what if Brock Purdy has to bail him out? He did. And he did. There are so many interesting facets to not only the playoffs, which we'll break down here in about 15 minutes, but all the quarterbacks out there. What are the Raiders now going to do at quarterback? Derek Carr could absolutely fetch you probably a 2nd-round pick. If a team's desperate, a 1st-rounder, you think it's crazy. 8 teams, 9 teams desperate for a quarterback. Coaches don't want to get fired. GMs don't want to get fired. You're getting something for Derek Carr. Is Jarrett Stidham the answer? J-Mac talking about Tom Brady. Here's what's interesting. Just a side note on the Raiders. So the Raiders have like 3 5th-round picks, a couple of 6. If you trade Derek Carr and get a couple of 2s, the Raiders could have a 1st, a couple of 2s, a couple of 5ths, a couple of 6. They could have 10, 11 picks. Tom Brady looks at that and goes, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, decent left tackle. Know the offensive coach. The Raiders lost, and the season's mostly done for them. Raiders could be one of the most intriguing landing spots for Tom Brady. Miami, I think, has to be in there. Raiders, Josh McDaniel has to be in there. The story now this morning, though, of course, is the 49ers. And did you notice something yesterday? Is that if you're from the Midwest or the East, this isn't as obvious. But when you live out west, Denver West, how popular the Niners are out west. They're the most popular team in the Bay Area. They're the most popular team in Nevada by a mile. And when the Rams play the Niners, it's 70-30 Niner fans. On the East Coast, you know, you got the Giants are popular, the Patriots, the Eagles. There's certain territories. The Niners are the West. Everywhere the Niners go, the crowd is way pro San Francisco. And that scene yesterday in Las Vegas was 80-20, it felt like Niner fans. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.